Well, it's that time of year again, where I show you my competition entries from over the year. Luckily for you, I only entered 2, so this won't take too long. This first one was hosted by a server called Builders Hub at the end of February. It took a little over 2 weeks, so just until the beginning of March, and we were provided the theme Iconic. Now, some entries used that theme to connect directly with popular imagery or media. Others went for more abstract interpretations of feelings. Iconic is an excellent prompt for variety. It's not bound by a particular genre of feeling. It can represent something good, it can represent something bad, which is why I decided to build the Manhattan Stonewall Monument on top of a pile of burning books. Burning books? Why would you do that, Kian? Well, it's relevant to a piece of history that is quite disturbing. Some of the most famous book burnings of history, the ones in 1930s Germany, were first aimed at queer targets, specifically an institute that researched sexuality and queer health. And we're seeing some parallels with that in today's world, specifically the United States, where a lot of that history is also being continuously wiped. So I think it's an iconic tragedy that happened back then and is continuing to happen now that should be recognized for what it is: a completely deliberate and malicious act against human rights. Anyway, let's talk about the actual build itself. The real monument does not have this big flag, although it would be pretty cool if it did. It actually sits right next to a garden of some kind. I'm not really sure. I've never visited. I've only looked at pictures. And it's these 4 individuals and a bench. Now, each of these 4 individuals took me about a day to build. It was quite a long process trying to make sure they were all the same size with one another, consistent and all. And to do that, I first kind of blocked them all out using just simple shapes and lines and stuff. Axiom helped quite a bit, actually. The shape tool is really good. It's this thing right here. It helps me make consistent shapes that I can then rotate, and things remain consistent on different angles, which can be quite challenging to do by hand, but with Axiom it becomes a lot simpler. So the planning process took a lot less time than I think it would have if I had just done it blind. And then each of these, took me about a day to finish smoothing over. I used a lot of tricks, used glass, walls, lots of debugged stuff, some colored banners, signs with text. I don't know why there's the quotation mark on this one. I think that's just a bug when I pasted it. But yeah, text, specifically that Unicode character that kind of fills up all this space. For the smoke underneath the books, I used campfires. The books don't really look that much like books because I ran out of time. That's a pretty common story for me. And the flag is also a little awkward again because I ran out of time. I just used the Archeon Loft tool to get a shape and then shaded it accordingly. And then to add some extra depth, I used the shadows generated by this ice up here. And that only works when you have your brightness set below a certain threshold. So if I turn my brightness all the way up, those will disappear. So if you use this technique, make sure you turn your brightness down or it's not going to do anything. And here's a closer look at the figures on the bench. Again, I don't know what the quotation marks are for. Here's the one instance where I used something that wasn't white to get the shape a little bit closer to what it is to the reference. I think this is probably the most I've really tried to replicate something with a reference. Usually I just kind of take some inspiration and then go off the rails from there. But here I was trying to be quite faithful. Okay, next build. Let's fly all the way over here. Any minute now. I'll tell you about it while we get here. This was a competition on the bakery server. This particular one, the theme was Forgotten, and we were given about 3 weeks to do it this November. I'm not going to tell you my interpretation of the theme just yet. I want you to see the interior first and make up your own mind, and then I'll talk about it. But yeah, the exterior, a lot of the same techniques I used on the monument over there. I used this ice for shading on the roof, especially because some parts of the roof had to be covered with carpet because of what's inside. So I couldn't really get any proper texture on the carpet, so I had to go with the shadows instead as sort of a replacement. Then, of course, you've got this parking lot down here. with these very laggy lines. Fun fact, I could not move this build around on the bakery server using the bakery tools because I was above the block entity limit. Oh, that's a mistake. Let me correct that really quick. These are supposed to have chains on them. I don't know why, but World Edit really... Dang it, what the heck? World Edit doesn't like the sideways chains for some reason. I don't know why it doesn't include it in my schematic, but these are the only instances of the sideways chains. It'll just take a moment to repair. Anyway, this, if you haven't guessed already, is supposed to be a mall. Particularly a quite empty one, as you will soon find. It is also supposed to be player scale. So, player scale, in this case, other people have different definitions, but in this particular case, player scale means 1 block equals 1 meter. So, this line of floating sand would be 3 meters long. And I don't know if you've seen a meter in real life, but they can get quite big. So, when you build in proper player scale, in my opinion, things seem a little small, but my hope is that people will adjust as they experience the build. Okay, so I've turned the time to night, and I've turned my brightness to full because I know YouTube likes to compress things, so I want you to see what's going on in here. So we're going to sacrifice the experience a little bit for clarity. So here's another instance of player scale. These are about, proper size for a two-sided bench, but because Minecraft scales often tend to balloon in size, this feels quite small. My computer's already lagging. Same thing here, right? Even though a single block would do for height, in real life that might be a bit tall, so I use the signs and some banner tricks to make something appear a little shorter. I put some water in some slabs above there, so we'd have reason for this puddle to exist. We could go that way, but there's not really anything back down there. I'm going to turn my smooth movement on so I'm not jittering around so much. I don't know if it's obvious, but these are supposed to be shoes. A little hard again. Player scale is quite tedious. Whoop! Yeah, well, man, I'm in the coat hanger. Oh, I gave away what this shop is supposed to be. I actually intended to build something like a scene outside, but I gave up, and then I didn't have enough time to come back to it. So you get a little bit of forced perspective on the lampposts, but just barely, and I'm pretty sure you wouldn't have assumed they were lampposts, unless I told you. Again, here's some banner tricks. If you color the bottom of the banner the same color as the floor, you can actually get away with putting them in the floor like this, because the gap, is hidden a little bit. You might have noticed I did that with the pots earlier on. Hope this is obvious what it is. Alright, let's go this way. Smooth movement can be a little difficult to navigate. Alright. This is the reason why I needed carpets on the ceiling. You might notice this room is very bright. That's because it is filled with light level 15 light blocks. Now, comment what you think this is before I tell you. Nah, don't worry about it. This is supposed to be a sunset, but I surveyed several people, and about half of them didn't know what it was, so maybe I've failed on that front. I'm going to actually turn my brightness back down for this room, because I think it's important you see it when it's completely dark. So, I'll tell you my interpretation of the theme now. There's sort of a phenomenon with dementia patients, where they will get attached to a specific prior point in their life, and they'll kind of mentally be there. And it's been researched enough that, trying to bring them back to the present is not effective and can actually be quite stressful. So a lot of dementia care facilities will incorporate sort of like they'll try and make the person feel like they're living in the era they think they are. So that might mean decorating in a certain way. Sometimes these facilities will actually have like diners and stuff. I've seen that happen. I had to stop for a moment because my cat wanted attention. And I also realized I had my heads-up display on, which, oops. Say hi, Sandy. Awesome. All right. Let me go over a little bit of about each of these features instead of just kind of sporadically walking through them. So this interior of the mall, obviously, it's supposed to be quite dead. So it's designed to represent the initial stage of, like, forgetting. Where early stages of dementia, you might misremember something, you might misplace something, and it seems more or less just like standard, everyday memory issues. And that'll end up progressing further on. So this mall might represent the present day. As we walk further down the hall here, we see a store that's open. And the store represents a shift one step into the past, maybe when this mall was open. But it's only half lit up. Part of that was to do with, I wanted to direct the judges appropriately towards the change rooms so they can continue on the build. And part of that was sort of to illustrate the half-present nature of the store. Also, if you're curious about these lights, they're just banners hanging in the ceiling. And some of the ones that are lit are lit with frog lights. The ones that aren't are lit very gently with the lowest level of copper bulb. Banners are cool because it's only the source block that the lighting affects. So, for example, down here, see the hitbox there? If I cover that up with something, then the top is going to get whatever light level the bottom has. So you can manipulate the light of banners by lighting their hitbox. So that's stage 1-ish, stage 1.5. Then there's the sort of younger years stage. So this is very much an American dementia patient that this build is sort of describing because this is an American diner. So this might be their youth. Then moving further along, it becomes their childhood, which is why the scale is all of a sudden doubled. So this is approximately 2 times scale. That means every 4 blocks is a cubic meter. Hi, Editing Kian here. Video Kian just said the math wrong, so I'm going to use this as an opportunity to talk in great detail about what he was trying to say. So, in front of me here is the default scale that I was dealing with in the build, so 1-to-1 scale. So this pane represents 1 meter of length. This surface of the diamond block represents 1 squared meter of area, and this full diamond block here represents 1 cubic meter of volume. Behind me is the doubled scale. So doubled meaning the length is doubled. So here these 2 panes represent 1 meter of length. Then these 4 gold blocks represent 1 squared meter of area. And then these 8 gold blocks represent 1 cubic meter of volume. And then this final room, of course, is like the final stage. So often with terminal illnesses, they will be sort of a last day or so of like lucidity. And this is supposed to represent that. That's sort of when your body is shutting down and it stops trying to do whatever. It's not well known what causes it specifically. That's just a hypothesis many have. And those are my competition builds. It wasn't that much of a year this year for me. I was quite busy, and there weren't as many competitions hosted that I wanted to participate in, so I just didn't. Okay, I'll see you next year, or maybe never. Bye!